Hello and welcome to episode 5 of our video series where we rank the best roller coasters that opened in a specific year. It's time to do 2005, a year which continued the mid-decade trend of many theme parks not getting any love after the aggressive roller coaster editions of the early 2000s. Much like how I didn't get any love as a middle child. Not counting relocations, a total of only 23 new roller coasters were built in the US in 2005. Okay, let's just get to it. Here are the top 10 roller coasters that opened in 2005. As always, the coasters on this list are ranked based on how they operated at the time of their opening year. That is, if they became rougher, or have closed, or had modifications in later years, that will not play a role in how they are ranked today on this list. We also only rank coasters that are newly constructed for the 2005 season, so you will not see coasters that were relocated and opened at a different park in 2005. Due to the very low number of new coasters built, we don't have any honorable mentions. But for the first time in this series, we have a three-way. Tie, kicking off the countdown. In that number 10 spot, we have a few of the Zamperla Twister coasters. Wild Mouse at Beach Bend, Galaxy Spin at LEGOLAND, Florida, and Crazy Mouse at Martin's Fantasy Island. However, each coaster has seen different fates since all three opened 17 years ago. Crazy Mouse at Martin's Fantasy Island, now Niagara Amusement Park, was sold and shipped across the country to a Boomers FEC in Southern California, where it now sits in pieces. Galaxy Spin at Legoland, Florida was taken apart, packed up, and shipped 25 miles up the road to be reconstructed at the Fun Spot America in Kissimmee. The only one still in operation in its original location is Wild Mouse at Beach Bend. The level of fun that you have on these coasters really depends on the balance of the car. If you ride with just one person off to the side, you'll do a lot of spinning and it's really fun. Just watch this. And somehow, I managed to finish the coaster without blowing chunks. Congratulations to me. Hanging at number 9 is the Bat at Lagoon. Not to be confused with... or... What really sets this Vekoma SFC apart from the other clones is how lushly landscaped everything is around it. You'll be flying over and through the trees as you navigate its 1,122 feet of track. It really goes to show that there's more to ride than just the layout itself. A theme you'll see many times on this list. Gosh, that really takes me back to the days of Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 and adding a bunch of trees around the coasters to increase my park's ratings. Chris Sawyer knew what was up. Dancing its way into the number 8 spot is Mr. Six's Pandemonium at Six Flags New England. After adding Superman Ride of Steel and Batman the Dark Knight, Six Flags turned to the coaster manufacturer Gerstlauer to add one of their new spinning coaster models in an effort to attract more families to the park. The name and theme come from the character from the popular Six Flags commercials from the mid-2000s. Mr. Six, the dancing old man who drove around in a big old bus and stopped at suburban neighborhoods to convince bored working families practicing child labor to take a break with some playtime. Mr. Six's Pandemonium at Six Flags New England was the first Gerstlauer at a Six Flags park. A move that proved to be very successful as Six Flags added new Gerstlauer spinning coasters to 4 more of its parks between 2007 and 2008. Some people don't count Alpine coasters as real coasters, but we do, which is why Alpine Coaster at Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park is number 7 on this list. Since the park is situated at the top of the mountain, Alpine Coaster starts off with a curving drop out of the station, and you don't reach the 1,000-foot lift hill back to the top until the very end of its 2,200 feet of downhill track. We also enjoy that you can ride this coaster an unlimited amount of times after paying admission into Glenwood Caverns. Alpine Coaster credits are pricey, and it could really add up. While it might not win in the creative name department, it is one of the more scenic Alpine coasters in the country, in the middle of the majestic Rocky Mountains.
That John Denver's full of shit, man.
It was also the first Alpine coaster in North America, as well as the first ride at Glenwood Caverns. It gave visitors something else to do besides the cave tours. Drifting its way into the number 6 spot is Italian Job Stunt Track at what was then Paramount's Kings Island. now known as Backlot Stunt Coaster. It's easily the best coaster themed to a heist. While you'd expect thrills of a family coaster with a height of only 45 feet and a maximum speed of 40 miles an hour, this premier limb-launched coaster packs quite the punch. It starts off with an intense launch right into an upward double helix themed to a parking structure that pulls a good amount of positive Gs. And then it drops into a street lined with highway signs and police cars with sirens and lights flashing. After evading the Popo, the Mini Cooper themed train comes to a complete stop where a helicopter shoots simulated gunfire at riders. The train is then launched again into a tunnel, twisting and dropping before coming out of the broken billboard, splashing down into an LA aqueduct, and then turning left before coming to an end. It's one of the best themed coasters on this list, and it has more fine curves than Charlize Theron. And it really shows that a ride doesn't have to be big or fast to be a lot of fun. Which takes us to another example of how excellent theming makes an average coaster much better.
Ludicrous speed! Go!
Launching at number 5 is Space Mountain at Disneyland Park. And yes, it's a new coaster. And no, we're not credit whores. When the original Aero Development roller coaster reached the end of its service life in 2003, it was closed and the insides of Space Mountain were completely gutted. And a whole new track, almost identical to the original, was built by Dynamic Structures, and it went up in its place. Complete with a new ride soundtrack, the extensive renovation took 2 years, and Space Mountain reopened in 2005, in time for the 50th anniversary celebration of Disneyland. The ride soundtrack and theming has changed a few times on a temporary basis in later years. At one point, there was a god-awful Hoobastank version of Rockin' Space Mountain, but thankfully it never saw the light of day outside cast member previews, as if Disney couldn't treat their employees any worse. To this day, Space Mountain continues to be one of the best indoor roller coasters in the US, and is proof that a coaster with a max speed of only 35 miles an hour can still be really awesome. Slithering into the number 4 spot is HYDRA the Revenge at Dorney Park. This Bolliger and Mabillard floorless coaster starts out with something you rarely see on a coaster, an inversion right after leaving the station. Before reaching the lift hill, riders are taken through a Heartline roll, which was given the name of a JoJo roll. No relation to the 90s R&B duo KC and JoJo. It definitely has one of the more interesting layouts of any B&M floorless, or any coaster for that matter. After the first drop of 100 feet, you're taken into an incline dive loop, which is more of a turnaround than an inversion. And then a 0G roll, a corkscrew, a cobra roll, and another corkscrew. Missing is a traditional vertical loop that almost every other inverting coaster has. Well, I guess unless it's built by RMC. Even the cobra roll is oddly shaped. B&M was feeling a bit avant-garde when they were designing this one. What's better than a coaster built on top of a parking lot? That's right, a coaster built underneath one. Hades at Mount Olympus was the first roller coaster designed by the Gravity Group, and oddly the second coaster in a row on this list themed to a Greek legend and mythology. After Custom Coasters International filed for bankruptcy, 4 of its designers formed the Gravity Group, and they blew the underworld away by creating a damn good hybrid coaster that features an 800-foot-long tunnel under the Mount Olympus parking lot. What makes this coaster so unique is not only are you able to take the tunnel twice, but the track banks at 90 degrees in complete darkness. And since coasters on this list are ranked based on how they operated when they opened, it's important to note that Hades was once a smooth coaster. But it was plagued with valleying issues after the first trip through the tunnel. So in 2013, the island attract after the first trip through the tunnel was redesigned to include a corkscrew inversion instead of a large hill, and a 110-degree overbank turn before the return trip, and the coaster was renamed Hades 360. While Hades is now rough as hell, see what I did there? It was the 3rd best coaster to open in 2005. Being the tallest and fastest doesn't necessarily mean that something is the best, which is why KINGDA at Six Flags Great Adventure is number 2. In a lazy effort to one-up Cedar Point, Six Flags asked Intamin to take Top Thrill Dragster, add 36 feet to it, increase the hydraulic launch speed by 8 miles an hour, include a drawn-out camelback hill, and then for some stupid reason have over-the-shoulder restraints instead of a lap bar. Probably because it's New Jersey, one of the worst states in the nation. The end result was KINGDA, still the tallest roller coaster in the world today, and formerly the fastest until Formula Rossa opened in 2010. But despite being taller and faster than Top Thrill Dragster, KINGDA is the weaker of the two coasters. The launch doesn't feel as strong and sort of feels like you're being yanked down the launch track instead of one consistent pull. Regardless, KINGDA is still an incredibly intense experience, and one of the two coasters to make us fart mid-ride, the other being Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain. And soaring into the number 1 spot is SHEIKRA at Busch Gardens Tampa.
I think you mean SHEIKRA.
Oh yeah, that's how you say it. Anyway, it could be argued that KINGDA is the better ride, but it brought nothing new to the coaster world. It was literally just a plus-up version of Top Thrill Dragster. SHEIKRA, on the other hand, was the first Bolliger & Mabillard dive coaster in North America, the world's tallest and fastest of its type when it opened, as well as being the first dive coaster to feature inversions and a splashdown. Riders are taken to a height of 200 feet and then dropped at a 90-degree angle, reaching a maximum speed of 70 miles an hour. Then the train enters a 145-foot tall Immelman loop and features one of the best head chopper moments on any coaster if you're sitting on the right-hand side of the vehicle. An upward turn leads into a mid-course brake run before dropping 138 feet once again at 90 degrees. This leads into another turn into the splashdown, finishing with one more turn into the station. And if SHEIKRA's stats and elements weren't enough to justify it being number 1 on the list, the theming and landscaping do just that. It's an absolutely beautiful ride in all aspects, which is why SHEIKRA led the class of 2005 and is still considered B&M's best dive coaster by many enthusiasts today. And with that, our list of the top 10 coasters of 2005 is complete. It was a decent year for new coasters, but the mid-2000s were overshadowed by the years before it, a trend that will continue for a few more years, but we will get to those shortly. Did any ranking surprise or upset you? What would you change in your own ranking? Let us know down in the comments below. We'll continue to release a new video from this series each month, so if you're a fan of this type of content, please consider giving this video a like and our channel a sub. And as always, thank you for watching.